trouble.
Yeah.
Welcome to History with Kids, Caesar's Gallic Wars, Book 2, using once again the Loeb edition, translation into English. We should alert you, this episode is about ancient warfare, which includes violence and death. We're not trying to scare anyone, but this may not be for sensitive listeners. Now, on to the story. As a reminder for everybody, Caesar had been drawn into Gaul by an invasion of the Helvetii, whom he blocked and then pursued and then defeated. And then Caesar also defeated some Germans. Now, picking up Book 2. While Caesar was resting for the winter and his soldiers were resting for the winter, rumors were reaching them and messengers were informing them that the Belgians, which is a big group, about a third of Gaul, up in the north mostly, are conspiring against Rome and giving hostages to each other. What do we think is going on?
They're giving hostages to each other because they want to all fight together so that no one leaves.
That's a great point, Scooby-Doo. What about you, Noodle?
If someone betrays, they could kill.
Yes, good job. That's exactly right. So here are the reasons why the Belgians are doing this. In the first place, they're worried that when all of Gaul is conquered by the Romans, then the Belgian areas will also have to deal with the Roman army. There's a bunch of other reasons too. One of them I think is very interesting, which is that some of the powerful chiefs of the Belgians wanted to stay kings. But if the Romans conquer this whole area, the Romans don't let them be kings anymore. They'll have to work for the Romans. They don't want to work for the Romans. So they want to stay independent. So Caesar hears this news and decides, all right, I need new legions. So he adds 2 more legions to his army, and he tells his allies to keep him posted on what is happening with the Belgians.
Legion?
A legion is basically a big group of soldiers. It's like an army of soldiers. So he's making his army bigger. Good question. And Caesar races up to the borders where the Belgians are. He gets there so fast that the Belgians aren't ready for him. Now, the nearest group to the Belgians is called the Remi. And the Remi send a messenger to Caesar and say, hey, we surrender to you, Caesar. You can have all our stuff. We want the power and protection of Rome. We're more worried about the Belgians than we are about you. We'll be on your team. So Caesar quickly learns that the Belgians are very fierce warriors. Many of them started in Germany, earlier generations, and that there are 300,000 Belgian soldiers. Caesar only has 40,000. Kids, which number is larger? 300,000 or 40,000?
40,000. So
I heard both answers. Is it 40 or 300?
300.
Correct. Good job. You got it right. So if you're Caesar, you only have 40. The enemy has 300,000. What would you do if you were Caesar?
I would try to separate their army into chunks so that you can go after them easier.
That is exactly a key point Caesar makes. Excellent advice. Noodle, you want to add anything?
Maybe they will kind of feel like that. It's easier to attack in their groups because it's easier to corner them. Oh, and surround them to defeat that little chunk.
So Caesar calls the leaders of the Remi together with him and says, we need to have a meeting and we need to figure out our plan. Now, Caesar makes a great point to the Aedui. Remember, the Aedui are the group that's been allies of Caesar's from the beginning. And the Aedui have an army here. So Caesar tells the Aedui, look, the best strategy here is that we need to keep the Belgian armies separated from each other so that they're not all massive and big at once. The best way to do that is if the Aedui lead their own forces into the Belgian area and start to destroy stuff in Belgium. That way, the Belgians won't be able to come and attack me as a full group. So that's the strategy Caesar adopts. He quickly leads his army to a spot that's in between the Remi, his new allies, and the Belgians. There's a river behind him where the Remi can bring him food and supplies, and he's on a hill. There's a little bridge over the river, and he has a lieutenant general, this guy Quintus Titurius Sabinus, with 6 cohorts, it's a bunch of soldiers, to build a camp with a big wall made out of probably wood mostly, and a ditch 18 feet broad. So he's building basically a little fortress, Caesar is, in this spot. There's a town of the Remi 8 miles away, and the Belgians attack that town. The town defends itself for 1 day. The Remi sends Caesar a message saying, unless reinforcements are sent up, we're not going to last very long. So we need your help. We're your allies. You got to help us. Caesar sends off in the middle of the night to this town that the Belgians are attacking some of his soldiers from Numidia, from Crete, Balearic, if I'm reading that right, some archers, some slingers, horsemen to help the town. And their arrival works. It surprises, I guess, some of the Gauls. And the enemy decides, all right, we're not going to conquer this town right now. They do burn some of the houses around it, the Belgians do.
So first try to defeat Caesar, because Caesar is the main one that's telling the army what to do.
Correct. That is the Belgian plan. That is their plan. And then they speed with their forces to where Caesar is. And they say, all right, we got to really take a crack at defeating Caesar's army. The Belgian camp, when they're camped near Caesar's army, you can look at the smoke and the watchfires. It is 8 miles large. How would you feel if you saw that?
Scared. There was a lot of people you have to deal with.
Yeah. Caesar makes his defenses really strong. He has his main fortress on top of the hill. He builds trenches around it. He builds trenches on the left and right sides running down the hill, almost like rivers or streams. He builds forts along the trenches. He puts artillery in the forts. That's like catapults and that kind of thing, so that the enemy can't surround his army. In between the trenches are where he's going to deploy his soldiers in 3 big lines. And there's a marsh in front.
It's going to be hard for the other team because they mostly like to charge, but it's going to be harder to charge because it's thin.
It'll be harder to charge because it's uphill, and it will be harder to surround and attack from the sides because of the trenches.
Otherwise, some people will fall into the trenches and won't surround.
It'll slow you down to try to get through the trenches, and there's fortresses defending the trenches and catapults and that kind of thing. And marsh in front. So it's a very tricky situation for the Belgians. They can't really attack into this. What would you do if you were the Belgians?
I would just leave.
But if you're the Belgians and you want to conquer Caesar, you're running out of food. You have a big army here. You need to do something that will defeat Caesar quickly. You can't attack him from the front. It's too well defended. So what do you try next?
Back.
Say more.
You attack from back. Yeah, but it's going to be hard because it's a long journey.
And the back is protected by a river. They try to swim across the river. So they find some fords. They try to swim across and go up and basically sneak attack or behind attack the fortress that Caesar has on the hill. Caesar leads his cavalry on horses, working with him, and slingers and archers, and shoot the enemy while they're in the river. Because when you're swimming and trying to ford the river, you're vulnerable. You can't defend yourself very well. And a lot of the Belgians get defeated. There's a cloud of missiles, it says. So the missiles in this case doesn't mean like a modern rocket. It means rocks and arrows and that kind of thing. So the Belgians can't get across through the river. And now the Belgians have a problem. They're running out of food. This is where the fact that the Belgian army is so much larger than Caesar's army actually helps Caesar. The Belgians have more mouths to feed. They have more people who need food every day than Caesar does. And because the Belgians have been unable to attack Caesar from the front and unable to attack Caesar from the behind, and Caesar's still getting supplied by his friends, the Remi, from the river, whereas the Belgians are not in friendly territory and they're having a hard time getting food, the Belgians have to go home to get food. This is what the book says when the Belgians are heading home. This then being determined, the Belgians decamped in the second watch with great uproar and commotion, in no definite order, under no command, each seeking for himself the first place on the road, and hurrying to reach home, so that they made the departure seem like a flight. So we're seeing the same dynamic we saw in Book 1, where first the Helvetii attacked Caesar, and then Caesar attacked the Helvetii, because Caesar's cavalry started to attack the Belgians. that are heading back up to Belgium. They pursue for many miles and defeat a lot of the Belgians who are just trying to get home and are not organized. Caesar keeps going, conquers some towns over the next couple days. The local Belgians are getting very afraid of Caesar. The Aedui leader meets up with Caesar again. Remember, the Aedui are Caesar's friends and allies. And the Aedui leader, and by the way, part of why the Belgians had to go home was not just that they were running out of food, but also that the Aedui army had reached Belgium and was starting to attack Belgium. So the Belgians were getting letters and messages from their friends back home saying, hey, the Aedui are attacking us here. We need you to come home right away. So that's just some context. All right. Now Caesar's moving through Belgium, attacking and destroying parts of Belgium. Caesar gets to a very fierce tribe within Belgium. This particular group is called the Nervi. I'm probably mispronouncing it. And they had some unusual rules of their society. They said no wine, no merchants, no luxuries can be imported into their area. Why do you think that is? Why is that a rule of their society?
They don't want people to get drunk. They don't want people to get rich. And they don't want people to get luxurious so that they forget all. They're basically only focused on fighting. Very tough.
Noodle?
Tough soldiers. Maybe they want to say sometimes, no one attack us. We are too strong.
Great point. They are very courageous, and the Nervi feel like the rest of the Belgians are weak for having surrendered to Rome. For the Nervi, they said, we will send no deputies to Caesar and we will accept no terms of peace. So Caesar has to go and fight the Nervi. Caesar marches 3 days through the territory of the Nervi, and he's capturing prisoners every now and then. And he finds out through the prisoners that there's a river called the Sambre, his current name, 10 miles away. And across the river, all the Nervi are waiting for the Romans to come, along with other tribes that are helping the Nervi. So the Roman army sets out to march for that spot. They're marching on a long line on the road. The front of the line reaches a spot in the forest where they're going to build a fortified camp for the night near the river. And so the front of the army takes out their shovels and starts to dig ditches and set up tents. But while this is happening, the Nervi are not in the spot that Caesar thinks they are. The Nervi are in the woods right around this very site. They're going to sneak attack Caesar. All around Caesar in the woods are Nervi, ready to go. And the front of Caesar's armies doesn't know that. They're whistling a tune, they're digging their trenches, they're setting up tents, but the enemy is lurking in the woods. Suddenly, they dash forth in full force. Already in the woods, they're right in their normal lines. They're already like hiked up and ready to go. And they charge out of the woods all around. And with the same speed, they're running up the hill against the camp. And they're starting already to attack the troops that have shovels in their hands. Caesar has everything to do at one moment. The flag to raise, a signal to a general call to arms, the trumpet call to sound, the troops to recall from entrenching, the men who had gone out farther afield to bring back, the line to form, the troops to harangue, the signal to give. A great part of these duties, it says, were prevented because there's no time and the enemy is here now. But the stress of the moment was relieved by 2 things. What do you think those 2 things were?
Could it have started to rain?
Nope, it did not start to rain. What do the Romans have going for them? This is a moment of supreme danger, but what is an advantage that they have?
Aedui?
The Aedui are not with them right now. Fair point, though.
The Belgians are running up a hill.
A little bit, yes, but some of the Belgians are also like right next to the Romans in the woods. So what do the Romans have going for them? What are their secret abilities that will help them in this very challenging situation?
They all know how to get into rings.
Yes, that's right. The knowledge and experience of the troops, their training, and there's a second thing, which I would not have guessed either, which is that Caesar had forbidden the lieutenants general, that means like the senior people who work for Caesar, he said, you can't leave this area until the camp is fully fortified. So that means they're all right there, the senior people who work for Caesar. And so as soon as they see what's happening, they don't wait for a command from Caesar. They start to take the actions that they think are needed in the different areas. So in other words, the soldiers are really good And the generals commanding the soldiers under Caesar are right there with the soldiers. Caesar runs immediately into the 10th Legion. That's the group of soldiers closest to Caesar when this all is going down. What would you say to the 10th Legion if you were Caesar in this situation?
Fight.
What else, Noodle?
Let's attack. Do not be afraid. Do not run away. If you die, I'll die with you.
Fair point. Caesar said, remember your ancient bravery. Don't be worried and bravely withstand this fight. And then Caesar had no more time to say anything else because the enemy's right there. So Caesar gave the signal to start fighting. And there's no time or space to even put on helmets. Many of the soldiers, their shields have covers on them to protect the shields from the rain and that kind of thing when they're traveling. They don't have time to take off the covers on their shields. So they're fighting without helmets. Their shields have covers on them. They're also not fighting in their usual groups. If you were digging a trench and this starts, wherever you see soldiers nearby, Roman soldiers, that's the group you run to and join, even if you don't really know them. You've never fought with them before. Now, the troops of the 9th and 10th legions, which were on the left flank, did very well and immediately defeated the Belgians that were attacking there and actually followed and chased those Belgians into the river and pursued them with swords as the Belgians were trying to escape across the river. Similarly, in another group, the 11th and the 8th Legion broke the Gauls, the Belgians that they were fighting, left their higher ground, and continued to the banks of the river. But what that means is that there's a gap in the Roman lines where the main nervi, led by the nervi leader, can go forward, and there's no Romans blocking them. And that main nervi force gets into the center of the Roman camp where the Romans were digging and building tents and that kind of thing. Now the Romans have an even more serious problem. And the soldiers that are coming up in this long line that's been traveling on the road see the Roman camp filled with the Belgian enemy and see the Roman legions having a hard fight in many spots and almost surrounded. See the people who work in the camp, the horsemen, the slingers, the Numidians, sundered, scattered, fleeing in all directions. Many of those Roman allies that see this say, oh, the Romans have lost. They get out of there. They race away. They head for home. They tell their friends the Romans were defeated. But were the Romans defeated?
No, they weren't.
Well,
But yet the battle wasn't over.
After talking to the 10th Legion, Caesar started for the right wing, and he saw that the troops there were having a very tough situation. The men of the 12th Legion were so closely packed together, they couldn't fight very well because they were squeezed like sardines. It doesn't say squeezed like sardines. That's a modern expression. But they're so tight that they can't even maneuver very well. All of the centurions had been killed. The standard bearer had been killed. The standard was lost. That's like the flag of the legion. Helps coordinate it. Almost all the centurions of the other cohorts were either wounded or killed. The men were tired. Some of the ones in the back were abandoning the fight, were trying to hide to avoid being shot. The enemy was moving upwards in front and were pressing hard on either flank. So Caesar sees this group in a very bad situation. It's critical. What would you do in this situation? No time to think. Just tell me.
By running to there and maybe sending reinforcements.
Noodle?
Sending reinforcements and attacking yourself.
So
do not run away.
You're both right. Caesar takes a shield from a soldier in the back as if Caesar had come there to help as a common soldier, and Caesar didn't have a shield on him. So he just takes one up, went to the first line, and calling out some of the soldiers by name, because he recognizes some of them, and cheering on the rank and file, he says, we got to advance, and spread out, because we're so tight that we can't swing our swords very well. And so spread out, everyone spread out as we're fighting, so that we have room to use our weapons more effectively. Now, if you were that Roman soldier and the big commander suddenly shows up, grabs a shield, is in there fighting with you, how would that make you feel?
I'm scared.
Correct. That is what happened. Everybody had renewed spirit and fought as hard as they could and stopped the onslaught of the enemy a little. Now, I'll tell you kids, I cannot think of any other ancient army in the world that was able to do this kind of situation, to coordinate, to be able to spread yourself out like that, so that you can swing your swords when you're not even fighting in your usual groups, in the middle of being ambushed without your helmets on. That is a very unusual, special Roman ability. Caesar then sees the 7th Legion, which is right there, as having similar problems. And so he says, hey, you guys over there, come closer to us. And he brings these two groups together so that the soldiers are supporting one another. They didn't have to worry about being surrounded. They could resist more boldly and fight more bravely. Caesar's about to have something else good happen. Can you guess what it is?
Food.
Nope. It's in the middle of battle. Everyone has a lot of adrenaline.
The people who's fighting run out of food, and they'll start to get tired and weak.
Nope, it doesn't have to do with food. Here's a hint. Time has been passing, though, a little bit. And remember how the Roman army was laid out in the beginning? And remember where some of the Roman soldiers have gone?
In the forest. So maybe the ones in the forest come to a backup.
Yes, the soldiers who had crossed the river chasing some of the Belgians get to a hill and see what's happening, see the challenges that Caesar's having, and they turn around and come back to try to help Caesar. But there's another thing as well. So remember, the whole Roman legion was on a long road, a thin little string, and the first soldiers were setting up tents and whatnot when this battle started. But the back was still marching forward. What happens to the back now?
Now it's here.
The soldiers in the back of the army arrive. So now you have the soldiers who had crossed the river, gone up a hill, they turn around and come back, and you have the soldiers in the back coming forward. So all of a sudden, instead of being surrounded by the Belgians, actually,
you're surrounding the Belgians.
Correct. The Belgians are a donut. Caesar's core army is the donut hole. But then this other group of Roman soldiers is like an extra layer around the donut. Maybe it's the plate.
Oh, the enemies are the frosting.
Fair enough. It's an open question, I suppose. Their arrival makes a massive difference. Even the Roman soldiers that were falling down under the stress of wounds propped themselves up on their shields and renewed the fight. And the enemy suddenly is in deep trouble. But the Nervi, even when their hope of safety was at an end, they're extremely courageous. They're very brave. And the Nervi keep fighting and fighting and fighting, even as they're being cut down. After the battle, the survivors surrender to Julius Caesar. Caesar accepts the surrender and places the survivors under Roman protection, which also means that he's basically saying, I plan to be here for a while. I'm going to protect you for a while. You're part of Rome now, basically. I've kind of conquered you.
Yeah, and I want to keep the peace treaty if you work for me.
That's right. That's kind of what he's saying. Some of the Belgians resist a little bit. There's a little bit more that happens, but basically at this point, it's over, more or less. There is one group of Belgians that initially try to resist Caesar. They have a town that's very strong, very fortified. Caesar starts building a siege tower on wheels. They've never seen this before. They don't understand what it is. They actually laugh at Caesar and his soldiers from the wall.
And do they siege tower attack them because they laugh?
No, they don't attack them because they laugh. They attack them because they attack them. A siege tower is a large tower, could be 2 or 3 stories tall, usually made out of wood, on wheels, very armored. You can roll it up to the wall. It has a staircase inside of it, so your soldiers climb up the staircase and get out at the top of the wall and can attack. And also arrows, they can shoot things, maybe a small catapult, that kind of thing. So anyway, the Belgians don't know what a siege tower is. They're laughing at it. They say, why are you building it so far over there? You guys are small. You're puny of stature. You're not big and strong. How could you get that tower way over there to do anything useful for you? Incidentally, Romans tend to be a little bit smaller than Belgians in terms of their bodies. And the Belgians make fun of the Romans for that. But is that a good idea? Should you laugh at short people?
No.
Should the Belgians laugh at short people? Are the Belgians recognizing what actually matters when they're laughing at the Romans for being small? No, because when the Belgians see the siege towers moving on wheels and approaching the walls, they're freaked out and they immediately ask for peace. And Caesar accepts, puts them under Roman protection too. They briefly try to rebel. He puts it down. That means they try to attack Caesar, even though they said they wanted peace. Doesn't end well for them. They get defeated. And winter time is coming up. It's been a long, hard year of campaigning once again. The legions withdraw to winter quarters. Caesar goes home to Italy, and he tells the people of Rome what he has accomplished. And when the people of Rome get Caesar's letters, and kids, that's the letters we're reading right now. You realize that? The people in Rome heard the story I'm telling you in the same way that I'm telling you. They read it. Caesar sent these messages back, and those messages are what the book is that's been translated to English that I'm reading you. Kind of wild. The 15 days Thanksgiving was decreed, which is apparently an honor that had never been given before to anybody. That means the people of Rome were really happy that the Belgians had been defeated. Why do you think that is?
Because no one else has defeated the Belgians before, and they were trouble for the Romans.
Well, think back to the beginning of what we were talking about today. If you were living in Rome, you were hearing reports that the Belgians were getting organized. How do you feel if you're in Rome and you learn that Caesar defeated 300,000 Belgian warriors and that Belgium is now under Roman control?
If I was in Rome, I would feel really happy and really proud of myself that I defeated a very, very strong army.
Scoops?
I would feel happy about Caesar because he destroyed the Belgians.
Overall, I think they're happy. And that is why 15 days of Thanksgiving are decreed. What do you think will happen next?
I think that that he might change his strategy.
Well, we'll have to find out next when we read book 3. Until then, have a great life.
Life